Krishna. Today we discussing about that landslides. So what is the importance of landslides in the civil engineering constructions? For example, as a civil engineer, construction of any type of civil engineering constructions, it must be know about that different types of landslides occurring in that past particular area. So what is the definition of landslide? So landslides means the huge quantity of material will be sliding to that along with the mountain hills or along with the slopes. So this is called as landslide. So in that case, so for example, if you constructed any roads, if you constructed of any dams, if you constructed of any buildings in that particular area, so definitely it will be facing the major huge great loss about to that in that particular area will be and whatever constructions will be collapsed. So whether it is we know about to that landslides occurring in that particular area, so what type of landslides occurring in the different areas. So this is about the generalized figure of to the different types of material will be collapsing to that particular areas. So if you seen into that, this is we consider as this is a mountain. So if you from the headboard, maybe we call it as a crown cracks. So that's we call it as a crown. So if we occurred in that along these slopes, that we call it as a minor scrap. So if you occurring to that slidings will be occurring into that along these slopes, that we call it as a minor scraps. The headboard part we call it as that will be crown or a crown cracks. If you the movement will be laterally the movement will be occurring into that particular rock masses, that is we call it as a transfer cracks. So in the similar wise, the movement of rock, the soil conditions will be radially moving to that we call it as a radial cracks. So for example, radial, it means the movement of material will be all directions. For that's we call it as a, so there is a radial point view. In that point of view, the rock masses moving on to that all directions, which is the possible ways we will going on to that in the downward movement. So that will be called as radial cracks. So then the foot of the tail of the material we call it as a toy, and the foot of the heel we call it as a foot cracks. In the similar wise, so these are the different ways the soil will be moving on to that by gravitationally, by any type of floods will be occurring in those areas. So maybe in the dry soil, maybe in the wet soils also moving on to that, in that along with the cracks, along with the slopes, the material will be moving on to that. So this is about to that, so different types of slidings of materials. So how many what are the types of earth movements? So this basically the three types of movements is there. So that is the one is the earth movement. So one is the earth movement. So what is the earth movements we called as? So earth movements means called as, so the material moving on to that based on the purpose. For example, in that solidifications is there. Solidifications, it means material will be wet conditions, and the material will be wet conditions, the moving to the downward movement. So for example, if you consider as this is the hill, so based on the solidification, the material and entire material will be some wet conditions is there. The movement will be occurring into that we call it as earth flow movements. So and landslides, a huge material suddenly collapse into that particular area, that's we call it as landslide. So and subsidence in the particular material, so to sinking to that particular area, so sinking down to that downward movement in the sudden cases we call it as a subsidence. So these are the three different variations in the classification of earth movements, that's we call it the classification of landslides. So we discuss about in detail in that one by one. So these are the different types of movements will be occurring into that. So when it is called as a rotational landslide, so the similar like as a radial landslide. So this is a rotational landslide, we call it as a radial. The particle will be dispersed in that radial pattern. So that is the translational landslides we already discussed, the particles moving into the lateral movement. So So that's we call it as a lateral landslides. And the block slides, we will sudden movement will be occurring in that particular rock masses. The entire rock masses will be fall down to that block wise. So this is the one block, this is another block, this is another block, this is another block. The sediment will be movement will be by pulling into the downwards. So that's we by block wise we call it as a block slide. In the similar wise, in the rock fall, we are very familiarly seen. So in the best example for if you seen into that Vijayawada Durgamma temple, so most of the conditions the rock will be fall down to that. So at that time we have seen into that. So these are the conditions will be occurring into that due to weathering of material. So during weathering of material in the particular area, the rock will be fall down to that. For example, if you weathering conditions, this is the supposed material he will be there, the material will be weathered, so definitely the particular rock masses fall down to the downward movement. So this is called as rock fall. The top fall means, so most of the conditions we have to see. So we have to consider this is a hard rock, this is the hard rock, this is the soft rock. So when the soft rock and the water entered in the particular soft rocks, so definitely the particular material will be collapsed. So this is the top soil will be removed to that based on the conditions when the water will be added in those areas. So debris means the huge mass movement. Huge mass movement will be flow down to the downward direction. That's we call it as a debris flow. In the similar wise, so debris is a huge way, so that we call it as avalanche. So when any floods occurring into those areas, it's a major avalanches will be occurring into that. Most of the scene we have to see into that major in that northeast places, in the Dehradun, in the some areas we have to find out these type of avalanches we are able to see. So that is earth flow means a natural flow. So if the water added in that particular area, the movement of soil will be including to that water, the soil will be flowing onto that by earth surfaces. The creep is the small way, the creep will be always with the movement of the soils. So in the same time, so these are the different types of movements will be seen into that in the natural phenomena. So in some cases will be natural phenomena, so some cases will be interpretation of human interpretations. So for example, if you seen into that recently we have to see the Gomati. Gomati is the area will be some constructions will be occurring in those areas. The land will be movement will be occurring. So why? Because of the human interpretations will be much more in the those sensitive areas. So definitely the area particular rock masses will be moving on to that based on the activity. So these are the different types of movements we will see into that landslides. So what is the earth flows? Earth flows means basically differentiated into three types. One is that solifluction. Solifluction, it means the soil will be moving downward the wet soil conditions along with the slopes. So for example, if you seen in that this is the hill, along the slopes the wet soils will be moving on to that by gravitational pulling. So that is we call it as a solifluctions. So what is the creep? Creep means similarly, so the condition of soil conditions will be very dry. The solifluctions will be soil conditions will be wet. Creep means the soil conditions will be dry. So if the dry soil will be slowly, when the conditions of the slowly movement of the downward movement, it's we call it as a creep. So and rapid flows. So rapid flows means similar to the creep. The movement of material so downward very rapid ways. Very rapidly, it means whether it is occurring of heavy rains in that particular area. So the movement will be very faster to faster. So that's we call it as a rapid flows. So these three are the earth flows. One is the solifluction. So another one is the creep. Another one the rapid flows. The solifluctions, it means when the movement of dry soils along the slopes, it will be called as solifluctions. When the movement of wet soil, so dry soil along the slopes, downward movement, we call it as a creep. So rapid flows means similar to act as a creep, but when the heavy floods and the heavy rains will be occurring in those areas, the movement of the flowing will be very rapidly. So that's we call it as a rapid flows. So these three are earth flows. what is another is that landslides. So basically landslides are differentiated into three types basically. So one is the debris flow. So one is the debris flow. So debris flows means failure of unconsolidated materials. So to moving on to the downward movement. For example, this is the one hill. So based on the movement of water added into that particular area, so definitely this particular slope will be failure. The movement of material will be downward based on the conditions we call it as debris flow. And rock slides also act as a similarless, but the rocks will be added as in the different block wise, fall into the different types of block wise. So that is we call it as rock slides. And rock falls, huge quantity of material, different blocks wise will be based on the sizes will be varied. So in the bigger size grains will be collapsed into that ground area, so that will be called as rock falls. So basically landslides are differentiated in the three types. One is the debris flow, another one is the rock slides, another one is the rock falls. So debris flows means the failure of unconsolidated material in the due to surface rupture. Based on the unconsolidated material due to surface rupture, the material will be downward movement. So the rock slide means movement of material, the recent bedrocks. So that's we call it as rock slides. So rock falls means a huge quantity of rock masses. So crashing to the suddenly in the downward along the steep slopes. That's we call as rock falls. So that is as I told in the earlier, the best example for that in the Vijayawada Durgamma temple, the number of rock material will be falling into that. Not only in Durgamma temple, if you see in that Tirupati, the various hill stations is there, always the rock will be falls down to that based on the weathering of the material in that elevation areas. The rocks will be fall down to that in that downward movement. So this is about the landslides. And now coming to that subsidence. What is the subsidence? For example, the particular material will be is there. So if you see into that, this is the one particular hill. So those material will be subsidence to that along the area. So subsidence, it means the particular material will be sinking into that particular downside. So this is the movement we call it as a sink. Sinking is means, so exactly the material will be oriented into that vertical orientations, sinking to that vertically. So that's we call it as subsidence. In the subsidence, most probably in the takes place, which are the material will be plastic outflow. So due to that overburdens of material, so that's we call it as subsidency. So frequently we have heard about the subsidency. For example, in that Kakinada, in the surrounding areas, the buildings will be subsidence due to action of some human interpretations. So with the human interpretation, is those areas are very high, so definitely those material will be so very soft conditions. So if you constructed any hard structure in that particular areas, so definitely the building will be sinking to the downward movement. So that is the best example for subsidence. So what are the causes of landslides? So basically we are able to see into that. So these are the conditions will be inherent internal causes. That is the one is one is the influence of slope. So for example, so at the time of rock formations, the time of rock formations, the rocks having a natural slopes will be occurring to that. So in the slopes will be always, for example, in the conditions of rains will be affected, the slopes will be very sharper and sharper. So later on the particular material will be removed. So this is the one of the internal causes based on the rock formations. So another is the effect of water. In that rock having some adding the water, so definitely, so due to internal disturbance, due to weathering conditions, or very water will be holding in that much more time in that particular soils. So definitely these soils will be removed. And effect of lithology. So lithology, it means related to so different rock textures. So different rock material will be considered as, this is the hard rock, so this is the soft rock, So when entering the water, heavy rain in the soft rocks, so definitely the lithological conditions will be vary. So these sediments will be removed to that. So this is about the conditions of lithological and effect of associated structures. So associated structures means when the time of formation of rocks, basically two types of structures is there. One is the primary structures, another one is the secondary structures. Primary structures, it means related to, if you seen into that, igneous rocks and metamorphic rocks or sedimentary rocks. When the time of formations, so different types of structures will be formed. Whether it is the igneous, so if you seen into that some type of conditions, that is the pillow lavas, that is the called as reaction rims. At the same time, part holes in the sedimentary rocks, so that is the different types of laminations. So this is the sedimentary rocks. So these are the conditions. So primary structures is related to that when the time of rock formations. After associating structures, after formation of rocks, so due to some tectonical forces acting on the particular rock body, it may be acted as a secondary structures like the fold, so fault and joints. These are the secondary structures. So after rock formation, due to compressional forces and tensional forces acting on the particular rock masses, so maybe in the tilted, maybe some displaced, so maybe some added. So maybe in the tilted we call it as a fold, so some displacement we call it as a fault, some adding the material will be adjacent to that rock masses we call it as joint. So these structures may be in that formation time, so definitely it will be affected onto that structures. And effect of human factor. So in the recent days, we are very familiar with seeing into that human interpretations in those rock masses. So why? Because of, if you constructed any buildings in the hilly stations, definitely some material will be excavated into those areas. So human interpretations will be seen into that very familiar in the recent days. For example, in the particular area hill is there, the people will be due to some type of constructions will be conducted into those areas. So definitely there will be changes, and lithologically some variations will be occurring to that. So based on the human interpretations, or using the forest areas, when the timber, different types of timber materials will be excavating those areas, definitely it will be another cause of flood effects. Definitely the rock will be fall down to that. So these are the human interpretations will be there. So this is the major causes of internal way. So immediate causes, what are the immediate causes? So that is, for example, immediate causes, it means most of the places. So for example, in the Jolton, for example, if you see into that sudden changes into that particular area, any, for example, Jolton jerk methods. So if you blasting into that any mining areas, definitely the surrounding areas will be disturbed. So due to heavy blastings. So these are the causes of major immediate causes. So what will be happening to that? If you affected in the surrounding areas, the material will be collapsed due to blasting. So this is a variety of this is the immediate causes of to that landslides. So what will be needed for to that? If you any sensitized areas means which are the, we are able to identify that this particular areas will be sensitive. For example, the frequently occurring to that landslides, frequently occurring to the debris flow, frequently occurring to the avalanches. So those areas we are unable to doing such type of activities. So such type of mining activities. If you do such type of mining activities, we are able to take in that major precautionary methods. How much area will be affected to that using of blastings? If may be identified, so then only we can start it to that mining that particular areas. So these are the one of the cause may be affected onto that immediate causes. So what are the effects of landslides? So basically, for any landslides, maybe in the changes occurring into that land surface. So definitely, it may be great economic loss will be identified to that. So in the civil engineering point of view, so if you civil engineering point of view, so if you occurring into that landslide in that particular area, definitely the pathways will be collapsed. So that is the transportations blocking will be occurring to that. So if you constructed a road, so definitely the road will be collapsed. If you constructed any building, the building also will be collapsed due to that landsliding. And in the similar way, so damages of roads, damages of railways, damages of different internal communication purpose, that is the telegraphs, maybe in that subline water sewage lines, the sewage lines damage to that, and in the case of burial buildings in those areas. So this is all are the point of effects for civil engineering point of view. So one is the major roads will be blocking, so because of due to landslides. So major different types of roads and railways will be followed. The rivers also flow will be directions will be changed. So if you simple example, the rivers are followed the natural phenomena. So rivers are flowing into that natural phenomena. So if you any obstruction will be occurred in that any point of time, the river will be directions will be changed. The river directions will be changed. In that case, the river will be flowing into that another way. So if you obstructed to that any obstruction to those areas, definitely the river will be directions will be changed. So at the same time, so different sewage pipelines will be constructed in those areas that will be damaged to that based on the landslides. So these are the major effects of landslides. So what is the preventive measures of landslides? So generally for any problem such a useful scientific methods we are utilizing to that to identification of various problems. So these are the some of the major key points to know about to that, some solution wise to that preventive measures. So maybe is a counter effect of slope. So if you identify the major slopes will be there in that particular areas, so we are able to construct the retaining walls to that particular against to the slopes. So in the retaining walls, so retaining walls to support it to that particular rocks. So definitely the rocks will be collapsed. Definitely the material will be break down to that in the retaining wall only. And to counter effect to that water. So if you identify to that in that particular areas, in the proper drainage system will be facilitated. So you have to minimize to that effect of landslides. And counter structure defect to that different types of defects. So for example, in the rocks having different types of cracks. So in that cracks the water will be added. Definitely the later on stages the water will be due to action of the water activity, it will be maybe effect of weathering conditions. Whether the rock will be weathered, definitely the rocks will be collapsed in that future scenario. In that case we have to using to that different types of grouting methods. So grouting methods means so some alternative material will be fixing into those cracks. So for example this is the two hills. So if in that cracks we have to fixing to that different material, so that is the effect, maybe decrease of affecting to those areas. So these are the different preventive measures we are taking to that. So before occurring of landslides, so we have to minimize to that those steps we have to follow to that. So at the same time loose nature of overburden. So for example if you whichever places will be occurring that natural landslides, for example we are very familiar with seeing into that in that whichever the water canals will be flowing in the both edges, the water passing into that. If you seen into that, so for example this is the both hills, so in between the water will be flowing. So those areas we are frequently seeing into that the soil will be moving on to that. In that case, so not only hills, in the construction of newly roads also we have to see. See in that case we have to growing up using of different types of geosynthetic methods. So geosynthetics methods using of cory fiber. Cory fiber just means a natural fiber. So it's whether it is whichever the material will be comes to the coconut. So in that coconut materials will be adding to that. So it will be improves of adding the different types of plants. It will improve of vegetation in those areas. If you improve those places in the vegetation, so definitely the particular soils will be conditions will be very good. So why? Because of in that trees the root levels will be penetrated into that particular soil conditions. It will be adding on to that, supporting to that particular area. So if you these type of methods will be practicing onto that those areas to minimize to that landslides into that particular area. At the same time, avoiding of the different types of heavy trophic materials, at the same time different types of blasting materials in those areas. So to minimize to that, so which maybe we have to one precautionary methods to that those areas. So these are the counterpart to that nature overburden related to, so growing of different plants, it's maybe to reduce that to minimize to that in that landslides in that particular area, and avoiding of different trophic materials and the avoiding of different types of blasting materials in that those areas, it's maybe to reduce to that landslides. So this is about a landslide.